Time to look at April's reading pile. I'm going to take you through my tortured selection process first. I'll chapter this up, so if you prefer to skip that, you can. But if the sight of a middle-aged man dithering in front of his shelves appeals, then you can watch that first. So let's roll that clip. Normally I start with the vintage science fiction, but I'm feeling a little bit over-vintaged at the moment, so I'm going to start with the newer end of my collection and work back. I'm also going to limit myself to 8 books for April because I've over-selected in the last couple of months. Let's try and improve the light a bit here. So I'm going to... So there's all my Alistair Reynolds, or most of them anyway, on this shelf, and I've read them all, but in particular I'd like to read House of Suns again. I haven't read that for a long time and I really enjoyed it, or at least I think I do. On the other hand, I've never read Century Reign, so perhaps I ought to read that. I haven't said I've read them all, I haven't actually read that one. Maybe, that's a maybe. On this shelf, I wouldn't mind tackling the Otherland series at some point, but I rather fear that's going to be a bit much to take on. It's a big thick book and there are another 3. What about I'm not even going to try and get it out. What about Bloom by Will McCarthy? That's meant to be good. Nothing else particularly grabs me as something I want to read this month coming. I would like to, I've said this every time on this shelf, but I would like to read Ash, A Secret History by Mary Gentle, but not this month. I need a bit of a run of time for that one. Is this the month that I read some CJ Cherry? Don't think so. What's on the bottom here? Well then. So Jake Arnott's meant to be good. The House of Rumour. Don't know if I fancy that this month. Out of the Dark. Maybe. I wouldn't mind reading The Passage actually by Justin Cronin, but that's again a big fat book and there are another 2 to come after it. I'm feeling the need for some lighter reads this month that I can just kind of crank through without them being too challenging. I'm feeling the need for some leisure time in my reading in April. So the David Webber book Out of the Dark would fit the bill there, as with The Cruel Stars by John Birmingham, but that's the first of 3. I don't have the other 2. In fact, I don't think the third one's even out yet. So where are we going? I think of those on that shelf, probably Out of the Dark is going to be a good one for me this month. I'd like to read the Zealey sequence by Stephen Baxter, but I'm missing Raft. I don't even have it in a paperback, so that's a bit of a non-starter because Raft is the first book. I'm never sure which is the second book, honestly. I wouldn't mind recently deceased Brian Stableford, Empire of Fear. That's sort of vampire aristocracy, alternative history type thing. Can't say I massively fancy anything else on this shelf at the moment. Early Ryan, maybe, do you know what, maybe a bit of Just Before. That's meant to be quite light and a bit different. What's on this shelf? This is mostly Neil Asher, some of which I've read, some of which I haven't. I wouldn't mind, maybe I'll reread The Brass Man, that's quite good. On this shelf I would like to read... what about Barehead? There are a bunch of Ken MacLeods on here I haven't read, including, tell you what would be logical for me to read next would be the Cassini Division, which is the 3rd of the Fall Revolution books, is it? So there's a couple of potentials there. There are others I'd like to read, but that I've acquired recently that I won't try to tackle this month. Now then, what about on this shelf? Well now, I was very kindly bought by a gentleman called Bruce in Canada the first 5 of the Red Rising books. So that's not a difficult read, I gather. I read a Vorkosigan book earlier this month in March, but I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but it didn't light my fire, so I'm going to pass on those, I think. Nope, nothing on that shelf. What about Philip K. Dick? Can I be tempted by some Dick? as it very much were. Do you know what? So the answer to that is really no, but I would like to read, actually is, it's a bit of an obvious choice, but Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So maybe I'll do that. Now then, what do we got down here? I keep saying I want to read this, but I'm going to hold off until I get book 2, which comes out later this year. It's meant to be a good read. I quite enjoyed the first of his SF books that came out in the last few years. It's pretty good, and again, not terribly demanding from a intellectual point of view. I would quite like to read The Alien Shore, but maybe not this month. Right, let's see what is on this shelf. Do you know what? I could do worse than reading the next of the Thunder and Lightning books by John Varley. Those are not a difficult read. And I'd also quite like to read Aztec Century by Christopher Evans. There's some Silverbergs here I really want to read, but not now, at Winter's End and The Queen of Springtime in particular. I'd like to read a lot of books, but I'm not sure I'm ready for hard science fiction this month. In the Ocean of Night, that's the first of the Galactic Centre books. I've got all of those now. Let's see, what does Mr. Roberts have to offer? I would like to read another Adam Roberts. I think I'm going to read, really like the sound of the premise of On, so that might be my next one. That's his second book. Look at those, don't they look handsome on the shelf? They just scream, read me. So, as well as being very good writing, they actually look rather handsome as well. What else have we got here in the new department? Oh well, it would be rude of me not to read one of the books that Whitney sent me recently, so perhaps I'll go with Generation Ship. That does sound good. And what's behind here? I'd like to read that actually. My daughter's been nagging me to borrow it, but I've said she'd have to wait until I read it, but I haven't read it yet. It's not science fiction, it's fantasy, mostly. I'm going to give, well, I'm going to put it on the long list for April. The Red Scholar's Wake, which is a light, modern space opera. It should fit the bill. That's meant to be good, but it's the second book in a series, so it's no help to me. I'd like to tackle Brazil at some point, but not now. What else we got up here? I've read many of the books on this shelf. I haven't read Ministry for the Future, so that's a possibility. I've already got more than 8, haven't I? But I will narrow it down. Keep some in reserve. And of the ones on this shelf, way up here, I think if I read anything, it will be Parable of the Sower, but I'm maybe not ready for that. So I haven't even looked at my vintage shelves yet. I haven't even looked at the panossages. I haven't even looked at the anthologies. But as I say, I am feeling a little bit vintaged out at the moment, so I'm going to stick with more recent books and damn the consequences. Right, welcome back. So time to go through the books that I've chosen. I think, as I said, in my little clip just now, I was a bit overambitious in February and March's choosing of books. I had way too many books on my pile. I didn't finish them. In February, I had a couple left at the end of the month, and I didn't roll those over into March. So they kind of just sat there forlornly, not back on the shelf and not really waiting to be read either. Similarly for March, I'm going to finish the month, I think. So we're recording this on the 26th, so still a few days of March left. So I will get through 2 or 3 more books, I think, but I've still got 7 at least left on my pile to be read. So I will have a few left at the end of the month, I think. So I'm going to dial it right back down. I've just chosen 8 books, and then if I crank through those quickly, and I might well do because I've deliberately chosen what I think are fairly light reading. So if I crank through those quickly, then I can add a few more as the month progresses, and I can decide as I go whatever the mood takes me. Okay, so let us see what I've picked. I've gone with Generation Ship, which is a book I got recently. It was very kindly sent to me by a fellow booktuber. Which way is that? That way. Whitney, who has the Secret Source of Storycraft channel. And she was very generous and sent me 2 books, and this was one of the 2 that she sent me. So this is a Generation Ship book called Generation Ship, creatively enough, by Michael Mame, which was new last year. I think it was released in 2023. Let us just check. Bear with. So he's written a few other books. So this was published in 2023, including a 3-book series called Planet Side. But this book has a really long blurb on it, so I'm not going to read all of that. But this is set on a colony ship called Voyager, which departed Earth for the planet of Promiser with 18,000 of the world's best and brightest on board. 250 years and 27 light years later, an arrival is imminent, but all is not well. They've sent some probes ahead to gather data, and what they're getting back isn't encouraging. More questions than answers. It's a time when the entire crew should be coming together to solve the problem, but Science Officer Sheila Jackson can't get people to listen. With the finish line in sight, a group of crew members want an end to the draconian rules that their forebears put in place generations before, presumably to ensure the safety and survival of the ship. However, Security Force Officer Mark Rector and his department have different plans. As alliances form and fall, Governor Jared Pantel sees only one way to bring Voyager's citizens together and secure his own power, a full-scale colonisation effort. Yet he may have underestimated the passion of those working for the other side. Meanwhile, a harsh planet awaits that might have its own ideas about being colonised. A battle for control brews, and victory for one group could mean death for them all. So this is political science fiction done right, apparently. Cleverly written, topical and compelling, with a relatable cast of diverse characters, deeply personal stakes, and the twisty plot elements that will keep you on your toes. Jesus, nearly 600 pages. I thought it was pretty slender, but it's kind of densely packed pages. So that's the same density as Empire of Silence, which is a significantly thicker book. Oh well, hopefully it will rollick along and be a straightforward read. Next I have picked, what's it called? Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. He of Eragon fame back in the day. He wrote a book 2 or 3 years ago called To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, something like that, which was a little bit panned at the time, but I read it. I quite enjoyed it. It wasn't like knock your socks off good or anything, but it was worth reading. It was engrossing at the time. So this is, I don't think it's a sequel. It's set in the same sort of milieu as the first book, but I don't think I think it can stand alone. So let's see what it says. No one could prepare for the ultimate encounter. On the planet Talos 7, an anomaly is detected, a vast circular pit, 50 kilometers wide, with dimensions so perfect that it must have been designed. But who could have built it? More importantly, why? A hand-picked team of scientists is assembled to find answers. They must land on the uninhabited planet and then journey on foot across the surface, all driven by their own internal demons. For one explorer, the mission is the opportunity of a lifetime. For another, it's a risk not worth taking. For xenobiologist Alec Crichton, it is a desperate attempt to find meaning in an uncaring universe. That name sounds vaguely familiar. I have a feeling he might have been in the first book, but I might be completely wrong. The small team finds itself on a hazardous trek to the very edge of existence, every step towards a mysterious abyss more punishing than the last, and the ghosts of their pasts follow. Fractal Noise is a blockbuster science fiction adventure from worldwide phenomenon and international bestseller Christopher Paolini, who I still think of as being a teenager as he was when he wrote Eragon, but he must be like 30 now because Eragon was years ago. So he's probably grown up and everything. This is a good deal more slender, less than 300 pages. I'm expecting that to move along quite nicely. Talking of moving along quite nicely, the next one I have selected is David Webber's Out of the Dark. He has his detractors, does David Webber. It is schlocky science fiction. It is not literary in any way, shape or form. But a couple of his that I've read, I've quite enjoyed, one more than the other. And this one has been recommended to me by multiple people. Although other people have said that they thought it was a bit shit. So page your money, takes your choice. I will only find out if I read it. So this is a first contact / alien invasion gig. Fleet Commander Thickair looked at Ship Commander Arsmare in astonishment so deep it was sheer incomprehension. I'm sorry, sir, the flagship CO sounded like someone trapped in an amazingly bad dream. The report just came in. I'm afraid it's confirmed, sir. All of them? Thickair shook himself. Everyone assigned to the base. All of them, Arsmare confirmed heavily, and all of the test
and all the test subjects have disappeared. Danther, Thikar half whispered. He stared at the ship commander, then shook himself harder. How do they do it? So I don't know. No one knows. It doesn't look like anything we've seen the humans do before. What are you talking about? Thikar's voice was harder, impatient, but he knew much of his irritation was the product of his own shock. But that did not change the fact that what Osmo had just said made no sense. It doesn't look like whoever it was used weapons at all, Fleet Commander. Osmo didn't sound as if he expected Thikar to believe him, but the ship commander went on doggedly. It's more like some sort of wild beasts. Got through every security system without sounding a single alarm. There are no bullet wounds, no knife wounds, no sign of any kind of weapon. Our people were just torn apart. That doesn't make sense. No, sir, it doesn't, but it is what happened. The two of them stared at each other. Then Thikar drew a deep breath. Senior officers conference, 2 hours, he said flatly. So those guys are the aliens. And they, some bad shit has just gone down on one of their encampments or bases or whatever, and their human prisoners have been removed, and all of their guys have been torn to shreds by what we don't know. Although I do, because someone's kind of gave me a massive clue about the twist. There's a second book, Into the Light, and then a third one I think is in the works. I don't think it's out yet. And this is an alien invasion. They kick our asses in the opening chapters of the book. And they're just kind of mopping up when things go a bit pear-shaped. So let me, having read you the blurb on the back, let me read you, there's yet more blurb on the inside cover. The galactic hegemony has been around a long time, and it likes stability, the kind of stability that member species like the aggressive carnivorous Shongari tend to disturb. So when the hegemony survey force encountered a world whose so-called sentience, humans, they called themselves, were almost as bad as the Shongari themselves, it seemed reasonable to use the Shongari to neutralise them before they could become a second threat to galactic peace. So apparently we're all far too aggressive, and you need to fight fire with fire, according to this. Now Earth is conquered, the Shongari have arrived in force, and humanity's cities lie in radioactive ruins. Like I said, they kicked their ass in the first few minutes. In mere minutes, more than half the human race has died. Master Sergeant Stephen Buchevsky, who thought he was being rotated home from his latest tour in Afghanistan, finds himself instead prowling the backcountry of the Balkans, dodging alien patrols and trying to organise scattered survivors without getting killed. And in the southeastern United States, firearms instructor and former Marine Dave Dvorak finds himself at the centre of a growing network of resistance. That's what I like. I do like a bit of human resistance against all the odds. It's enough to get the soul stirred. Putting his extended family at lethal risk, but what else can you do? On the face of it, Buchevsky's and Dvorak's chances look bleak, as do prospects for the rest of the surviving human race. But it may well be that the Shongari and the hegemony alike have underestimated the inhabitants of that strange planet called Earth. Does he mean us, or does he mean something else? So that sounds like pretty silly, but I'm in the mood for silly, schlocky space opera, stretching the bounds of credibility science fiction this month. So that is exactly what the Doctor ordered. Slightly less schlocky, to be fair to Adrian Tchaikovsky, is Bearhead, which is a loose sequel to Dogs of War, which I read a month or two back and really enjoyed. I'm not sure if this is on the same level, but it involves one of the characters from Dogs of War. It's probably my favourite character, actually. So in this book then, we are welcomed to Hell City, Mars. Jimmy Martin has a sore head. He's used to smuggling illegal data in his headspace, but this is the first time it started talking to him. The data claims to be a distinguished academic, author, and civil rights activist, and it also claims to be a bear named Honey, and she was the character in the first book. Dogs of War. Jimmy has nothing against bioforms. He's one himself, albeit one engineered out of human stock, and works with them every day in Hell City, building the future, staking mankind's claim to a new world, Mars. The problem is that humanity isn't the only entity with designs on the Red Planet. Out in the airless desert, there's another presence, a novel intelligence, elusive, unknowable, and potentially lethal. And Honey is here to make contact with it, whether Jimmy likes it or not. So what are you betting? I'm betting it's probably not going to be Martians. It's probably going to be AI. There's some kind of singularity event happened there, and it's going to take over. That's my guess. We'll see whether I get that right. And then I'm going to embark, time allowing, on another Adam Roberts book, this time On. It's quite a handsome cover. So the premise for this one is pretty unusual. And it's quite a brief blurb, mercifully for you lot. Ty lives on the wall. It towers above his village and falls away below it. It's vast and unforgiving, and it's everything that they know. Life is hard on the wall, little more than clinging on for dear life. It reminds me of the wall in Game of Thrones. Only I think this is a fuckload bigger than that wall. And then one day, Ty falls off the world and falls and falls and falls and survives. He finds a new part of the wall, a vast expanse of cluttered ledges packed with more people than he ever imagined existed. And a war fought by the popes, which is already interesting, and their armies, a war Ty must join, a war that will take him on a journey into the heart of the mystery behind the wall. On is a superbly confident novel of a radically different world. It has echoes of A Canticle for Leibowitz and The Book of the New Sun. That's pretty stellar company to be keeping, Mr. Roberts. I'll be interested to see. It is a remarkable feat of the imagination and sustained narrative drive. Of what I've read by Adam Roberts so far has been good, if not excellent. So I have hopes for that one. I hear good things. I've heard a couple of people say that they really liked it. Next, I'm going to give a crack to the Cassini Division, which is the third book in the Full Revolution trilogy by Ken MacLeod. Strictly speaking, there are 4 in that trilogy, but one of them is an alternative sequel. It's an alternative story to what's it called? The Stone Canal, the Sky Road, which will be coming to a book hall near you soon, in fact. Ellen May Nguethu is a young woman with centuries of experience, no morality, and the true knowledge. The world she knows is about to end. Orbiting around Jupiter, the forts of the Cassini Division, the elite defence force of the Solar Union, are the front line in the centuries-long conflict with post-human AIs, whose intentions are unknown, but whose powers once extended to shattering Ganymede and building a wormhole bridge to the far future. But are the post-humans less hostile than they seem? Do their awesome capabilities hold a hopeful future for humanity? The physicist I.K. Malley certainly thinks so, and he both worked out the theory of everything and refuted it. When the division sends Ellen to find the man whose knowledge could save the Solar Union, her search will take her from space to the ruins of London and back, and from the margins of a socialist, anarchist world to its most dangerous edge. The Cassini Division is Ken MacLeod's third novel. Sharp, fast, and fiercely intelligent, it confirms his place as one of the most brilliant new science fiction writers of the decade. So, let's see, this would have been published in the late 90s then, I think. Yeah, 98. Would you look at that? It's signed. How about that? I'd forgotten about that. Signed by the man himself. I enjoyed the first 2. He is a bit of an old lefty, and that his politics creep into the stories. I say creep into, they kind of wade in with the size 12 Doc Martens on, really. But that's okay. I don't mind. And then the last one I have on my list is a book I've had for ages and have never got around to reading, is by Jasper Fforde, who typically writes, it would be wrong to say comedies, but books with a comic tint. I think it's probably the best way to say it. And this one is called Early Riser, and it is set in an alternative world where every winter the human population hibernates. So it's super cold and we hibernate like bears do. During those bitterly cold 4 months, the nation is a snow-draped landscape of desolate loneliness, devoid of human activity. Well, not quite. Your name is Charlie Worthing, and it's your first season with the Winter Consuls, the committed but mildly unhinged group of misfits who are responsible for ensuring the hibernatory safe passage of the sleeping masses. You are investigating an outbreak of viral dreams which you dismiss as nonsense, nothing more than a quirky artifact born of the sleeping mind. But when the dreams start to kill people, it's unsettling. When you get the dreams too, it's weird. And when they start to come true, you begin to doubt your sanity. But teasing truth from winter is never easy. You have to avoid the villains and their penchant for murder, kidnapping and stamp collecting. Ensure you aren't eaten by nightwalkers whose thirst for human flesh can only be satisfied by comfort food. And sidestep the increasingly less than mythical Wintervolk. But as long as you remember to wrap up warmly, you'll be fine. So you can probably detect from that there's a sort of tongue-in-cheek element to his writing. This will be my first Jasper Fforde book, assuming that I actually get to it this coming month, but we'll see. So that's everything that I have selected for my TBR part. It's a little bit less ambitious than the last couple of months. Having said that, there are some fatter books there than I've tried to read during the last couple of months. So we'll see how I get on. Like I say, I've become a little bit vintaged out in the last few months, and I need a palate cleansing month, I think. Maybe I should take some time off from the genre completely, go and read some fucking fantasy or something, or just a good old thriller. Talking of which, I meant to get Dark Matter by Blake Crouch off my shelves and have that on my pile. So that may be if I run out of books to read from that little pile there, then I'll grab Dark Matter off my shelves and read it. Anyway, that's it for now. Let me know in the comments what you have planned to read for next month, if anything, and if any of the books that I've chosen float your boat. If you've read them, let me know what you thought. Don't spoil them for me. But otherwise, thank you for watching, as always, and until next time, goodbye for now.